It has been around 2 months since my wife and I had our first child. Due to some pregnancy difficulties, she spent the full 6 months of her pregnancy at home. We had also decided that our friends and other relatives could wait until the first 2 months after the baby was born, during which time only our parents and siblings would be permitted to visit and view the child. After the baby became 2 months old, my wife made an effort to resume her social life. She would occasionally bring the kid along, and other times she would ask me to watch the child. She would call her mother to see if she could watch the child for a few hours whenever I was unable to babysit. Although my wife is an excellent mother and genuinely loves our child, it annoys me that she feels the need to leave the house all the time. My mom came to visit me one day when I was watching the child, and she was out shopping with a friend. She wanted to know where my wife was. She was out with a buddy, I told her. My mother became enraged at my wife's outing, accusing me of lacking courage to confront her and insist that she stay at home with the child. I promised Mom I would take care of this. My mother started berating my wife only after she got back home. My wife needed to hear it from someone else, but it wasn't a proud time for me, and I really didn't want to involve my mother in it. My mother informed my wife that she should stop going to social gatherings and take care of the child at home like a responsible mother, since she is reckless. My spouse attempted to defend herself by claiming that I was constantly out with my friends both before and after she gave birth, but my mother and I both made an effort to clarify that my going out is different from her being out. She had to get used to the fact that her social life would now be more restricted when my mom informed her that the days of going on small walks and hanging out for coffee with her friends were over. I know it's awful, but that's life. My wife hasn't spoken to me in days, and I completely agree with my mother. She moved the baby's cot into the guest room and now sleeps there as well. My mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and I have received texts from her stating that she will only cook for her and the baby, not for me. They also said that I was a big fool for doing this, as was my mother. Therefore, I shouldn't be surprised that my wife is treating me this way. It's you who is the fool. Take note of the way you describe caring for your own child as babysitting. You just want us to believe that it's different for you. You didn't bring up the times she goes out against you. Before your mother speaks, you don't even mention talking to your wife. Sadly, your wife is at home with 2 children. I once had a husband who was exactly like this. I now have primary custody of our children and live 4 hours away from him, but it's still better than being a stay-at-home mom with that moron for a husband. You are the moron, OP, and you will pay the price in the end, both literally and figuratively, if you don't change the way you think and tell your mother to shut up. It's obvious that your wife's happiness and mental health don't rank high on your list of priorities. Being a mother drains you of your life, day by day, when you are cut off from the outside world. Lord, you are so bad. Even before the baby was born, you and your wife united as a family and a team when you were married. Your mother is now a part of your extended family. She shouldn't be able to reprimand your wife in her own house at all. It's your responsibility to establish the limits. The severity of postpartum depression is often increased by an unsupportive partner. She was on bed rest when you physically left. She was undoubtedly worried about the well-being of this new infant that she was in charge of raising, feeling so alone and alienated. Additionally, you were out with pals, but she can't possibly spend a couple hours shopping. In the future, don't be shocked if she decides to leave you with your mother. This past week, my wife and I completed a significant job that involved completely redoing our dining room. This involved purchasing new dining chairs and an opulent marble dining table. Since she was a young child, my wife, a professional cook, has dreamed of owning an opulent dining room where she could organize dinner parties. I've been putting off this project for a while, but last year I received an unexpected bonus, so I decided to utilize it to finally realize my goal. My spouse is ecstatic to be celebrating this. For the dinner party my wife has been dreaming of throwing since she was a youngster, her parents, my 2 siblings, and my brother's wife are coming over. The husband, sister, and lone sibling of my wife are the only members of our immediate family. My brother-in-law is physically unable to attend the celebration as scheduled, which is the straightforward explanation for this. My sibling-in-law weighs more than 500 pounds. To avoid the whole fat-shaming argument that I know this will spark, I'll discuss why we didn't invite him. Even with the chairs we purchased, he is too heavy for them to hold him upright for extended periods of time. He would want us to sit in a medical chair that we are unable to bring into our house, or on the couch in our living room. It cannot pass via our entrance. It would be pointless to have a dinner party in our new dining room if he sat in there. In addition, we know that my brother-in-law would not be comfortable with this dinner party's 7 smaller meals. He's been known to harass my wife in the past over serving fewer portions. This relates to a bigger problem with him and eating, which I won't discuss, since I don't want to argue about it. With all of this in mind, we left him off the list when we sent out the invitations, but not her sister. When he called last night to inquire why he wasn't invited, I didn't lie to him. It has to do with his weight and his previous behavior with food and my spouse. We were excluding him because of his weight, and it drove him insane. He claimed that we are being bigots and that this is unfair. Yes, I reminded him, this is about his weight. Tonight is about my wife and my ability to realize a childhood dream. It's not about making accommodations for him and his food and mobility problems. A crap storm has resulted from this. Now, my wife's sister is publicly shaming my wife, me, and everyone else at the party on Facebook, calling me a phobic moron, who advised me to disregard it. My pals have called me an elitist and a giant moron for this whole thing. Am I not the foolish one? He sounds like he's in denial, and when you're that heavy, you have to accept the fact that you can't accomplish the same things as other people. The sister of your wife is also an enabler. The concept of the celebration is little courses, and he has previously chastised your wife for providing tiny servings. Even in the absence of the unique constraints imposed by his weight, his behavior is likely to recur and become problematic. His actions would be sufficient grounds for exclusion. Wait until she discovers that not even medical equipment is intended to support 500 pounds before SS lets out a fit. He might not fit in an ambulance either. Can an individual weighing more than 500 pounds board a commercial aircraft? I'm not sure what the expectation is. For you, what solution does he think would work? Or what is a sister's recommendation for you to do? He has the option to choose to be wheeled into the house and sit in the kitchen, away from everything else, if that's what he wants to do. I'm not sure what you should do if not. I concur. People are usually quick to accuse you of being ableists if you don't make accommodations for them. It's a truth of life that you cannot please everyone. Good luck, man, and forget about the drama on Facebook. Congratulations on your new dining room, both to you and to your wife. I'm hoping she likes it. I have 6 children with my wife. The youngest ones are toddlers and an infant, while the 2 eldest are nearly adult ladies. I work from home from 9 to 5, while my wife works from 9 to 6. We've had nannies and babysitters in the past, but after the last one quit, we asked the girls if they wanted to work for us and get paid extra. They agreed, so we created the guidelines. Between them, they get paid $50 a day to watch babies from 2:30 to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. As long as one of them is present, the other one does not have to be. They're great at calculating the weekly split in coverage. We just pay them both together every Friday night. Within our guidelines, they also have their own set of regulations. For example, if you miss 2 appointments in a row at the last minute, you forfeit $10 to the other person. But that's just between them both. Our policy is that they will not be penalized in any way if they give us a week's notice, or if they have an unforeseen emergency, such as the oldest daughter becoming ill on a Thursday. We desire for them to be allowed to lead normal lives. Additionally, we have been fairly lenient in defining an emergency. There is an additional provision, too, that states they will lose $50 that week if they can't find someone else to cover, such a friend, relative, or someone who has previously watched us. And it's not an emergency. They indicated last night that they both had tickets to an event tomorrow night at the theatrical club, and that they would be going out with some of their mutual friends from 3 p.m. to later in the evening. Okay, that's fine. If you don't want to ask around more, that's $50, but it's fine. They became furious and claimed that wasn't fair. I said, that's fine. Can you get the coverage? And they said, oh, cousin can't, so, oh well. Since this is the first time the rule has been applied, my wife suggested that I grant them a mulligan. The mulligans seem to have been used up already, and our absence policy is significantly more lenient than any other employment you could find. And although I believe it's a terrific idea for them to spend the money and that they're bonding with their siblings, I would be telling them to put down their phones, tidy up after themselves, and be less dependent on screens, etc., if they were just someone we were paying $20 an hour to watch our kids. Do I seem foolish here? You are the moron, LOL. Really, really, LOL. For $50 divided between the two of them, 4 small children for 2.5 hours a day. Allow your students to be students in high school, yes, if they'd like to see you and your significant other. Desire a night out in order to get paid. Simply put, you know that paying for quality private after-school care would cost far more than you already do, so you're reluctant to do so. Each of them receives a meager $25 to watch 4 children. When I was a babysitter, the very lowest amount that anyone I know would have charged was $10 per child per hour for one nanny, and that was more than 10 years ago. It's you who is the fool. You're ignoring the fact that they're not just strangers, but your real children. Making your older children look after their younger siblings for essentially pennies makes you an imbecile. You are in charge of looking after your wife's 6 children. You and she had them. Additionally, if they are unable to work, it is not their duty to find you a babysitter. That's what your role as a parent is to do. You're acting carelessly and sloppily. I wouldn't be shocked if they both choose to withdraw from the pressure you're placing on them if you continue doing this. My spouse, a 26-year-old man, and I, a 22-year-old woman, bought our home in the beginning of 2020. Sam, my husband's 24-year-old sister, dropped by because we had just got back from a vacation to Chicago, where I was seeing some family. I was complaining about how much I missed my cousins and how I wished we could relocate there, when Sam inquired about a trip. When she suggested that it might happen in the future, I responded that it was unlikely, because we had already purchased a home in the state where we currently reside. At that point, I told her how fortunate she was to merely rent her flat, rather than buy a home, because it would allow her to move any time. She pleased, but that it was very difficult for us because of the house, which tied us down. She appeared fine after that, and the evening continued as usual. During a family get-together last week, Sam expressed her dissatisfaction, saying that she wishes my father-in-law had helped my husband in the same way, giving her more financial security. I assured her that my husband earned his position via hard work. At that point, Sam became irritated and told me I had no business speaking since the $40,000 for the house, and a whole business was a giveaway rather than the result of hard labor. I informed her that although our father-in-law did provide us with a $40,000 down payment and funds to launch a business, his role was limited to providing funds. The fact that my spouse manages the company is what has allowed us to succeed. Then, after I reminded her that I had told her that I wouldn't be anything without her father's money, and that she was fortunate to be able to relocate whenever she pleased, she called me an idiot. Although my spouse and I felt she was quite impolite, she won't say sorry. So, am I the fool here? It's you who is the fool. How could you possibly not recognize your privilege? Naturally, it is extremely impolite to remark that someone is fortunate not to own a home. Let's face it, if someone cannot afford to own a home, they also cannot afford to relocate whenever they like. And why did your father-in-law provide financial support for his son, but not for his daughter? The largest blind area for OP occurs in the second section. Sister-in-law may have utilized $40,000 as a down payment on a home or company. Not even with OP can I. You are the foolish one for continuing to deny that your husband and sister-in-law are being treated unfairly, and for standing your ground like a fool. Yes, with the exception of the money his father gave him, my husband is a fully self-made man. When you talk, do you even hear yourself? Do you really believe that your husband wouldn't be where he is now if your father-in-law hadn't provided the funding? As someone who is saving up to start a business with my spouse, $40,000 is a significant sum of money for assistance. It's you who is the fool. In this awful economy, owning a home is the single best strategy to accumulate wealth. The short and long-term costs of renting are doubled. Taking insurance, deposits, and the first and last month's rent into consideration, the average cost of relocating an apartment these days is more than $2,500. In certain regions right now, it's equal to the down payment on a house through certain financing choices. The stupidity of your complaint is beyond me. You own your own home, which is now cost-effective and steadily increasing your equity. She receives no rent payments, and she just receives temporary housing in exchange. Oh my God. 8 years ago, my father-in-law purchased a modest, ancient home in their town. He made some minor renovations and had intended to turn it into a vacation rental, but that has never happened. My spouse and I requested if we may move in and rent it from him a year ago. Even though he didn't want to take our rent, we still dropped the money in an envelope at his house each month. He allowed us to live in this place, and we are really appreciative, but he visits us a few times a week without warning, mostly to assist with yard maintenance, lawn mowing, etc. I find it very bothersome that I work from home. He simply opens the door at random and peers inside to greet everyone. It has occurred at meetings when I was in the loo, or after I had just completed preparing supper, and the kitchen was a complete mess. He also stopped by occasionally when we were out and about. For example, one time he called to ask where the hairdryer was since he couldn't find it in our bathroom when we were trekking. I detest this and am constantly anxious, whether at home and away. My 430-square-foot house is very small, so I often feel guilty about leaving a mess behind when we leave and worry that my father-in-law will stop by at any time. He didn't listen to my husband's attempts to get him to phone us before coming over, so he changed the lock. Edit. Purchased a normal key from a hardware store to open the door that connects the entry room to the living area. It's not like we changed the locks. We used to be able to easily walk into the house, but that was a few days ago. We didn't inform him of it or seek for his consent. He just called my husband to say that he attempted to enter the house after we were gone for a few days, but was unable. My father-in-law is upset with us since my husband informed him about the new lock. We essentially shut him out of his own home, making it impossible for him to enter in the event of an emergency or anything else. Furthermore, we would not be permitted by law to lock out the landlord in a real rental arrangement. Tomorrow, when we return home, we'll need to talk about the situation. Are we wrong in this instance? Should we try to set up the boundaries we wish to, or should we go to him and apologize? Am I the foolish one? Here, everyone is the idiot. Without authorization, it is not possible to alter the locks on a house you do not own. I assume that as your landlord, you have resided there long enough to be considered tenants for legal purposes. He must give you enough warning if he wants to visit the property and is not allowed to enter it whenever he pleases. It is obvious that this is not working. As soon as possible, find a new place to run and leave his residence. His child is only temporarily residing there with his partner, but he will always consider it to be his home. It's not going to work if he can't separate his roles as a father and a landlord. Here, everyone is the idiot. I believe your father-in-law turned down your rent request for 2 reasons: to support you and to maintain full ownership of his home. It doesn't mean you're paying rent because you leave him money in any case. It's like you're giving him money. Even if it annoys you that he constantly coming inside your house, you have an extremely easy fix. Relocate. Do you desire autonomy and liberty? Get away of his house. It's you who is the fool. You don't have a contract, he owns it. You are visitors, not residents. Choosers cannot be beggars. Go out of the house if you're against his arbitrary access. However, altering the locks may perhaps force you to leave if I were present. Not a single query or haggling. His residence, his regulations. Dislike it? Go.